Welcome to Uncaged. Today we're speaking with Robyn George. Robyn, it's great to have you on the program.
Hi, Dan. Thanks so much for having me.
Now, Robyn is a senior telecommunications consultant at VertiGIS, and we've spoken to some VertiGIS folks in the past. VertiGIS is a company that unlocks the power of location to help organizations work smarter. Their innovative geospatial solutions connect complex location data with real-world operational workflows for utilities, government bodies, telecom providers, and commercial and industrial teams. So we're going to talk a little bit about what VertiGIS is up to. We're going to be talking about what's happening in the industry more broadly as well. But before we get there, Robyn, let's start with you. Let's talk about Robyn. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your career.
It's my favorite topic. As you mentioned, I am the senior telecommunications consultant at VertiGIS, and I've been with VertiGIS for about 2 years now, working, as you mentioned, in the utility and predominantly telecommunications and municipality area. Other infrastructure organizations as well. My background, it spans, well, I've been doing this for a lot of years, going on 30 now, and I've been in the infrastructure, predominantly telecommunications area, working as a solution architect and doing digital transformations. So I spend a lot of time with customers, trying to understand their challenges and help design solutions that improve visibility of their data across the network and kind of help them get greater value from the investments even that they've already made. And I've been really lucky to have had the chance to do this all over the world. And it's so neat to meet people and work with them. And one of my favorite parts of doing that, Band, is really not about the technology, though it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's about working with the people. And there's no better feeling than sitting down with a user community and really hearing their frustrations with their systems and their processes and being able to turn something around for them that solves those problems. And I'm just really happy to be here with you today to share some of that experience with you.
Well, I mean, I love that. I mean, telecommunications and the technology that supports it has certainly changed our lives, changed our worlds, and certainly what VertiGIS is working on is playing a big active role in taking it to the next level. And you mentioned, Robyn, that you work with municipalities, utilities, and certainly, I mean, those owners manage, their communications networks and other critical assets. But I mean, they're facing challenges like we all do, operational challenges. What operational challenges do you see that they all have in common, across those areas?
That's really the interesting thing. It really doesn't matter whether it's a municipality, a university,
Mm-hmm.
or a major carrier. They all have very similar problems.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody needs to know what assets they have, where those assets are located, and how they're connected. A lot of organizations still, interestingly, struggle with information that's spread across lots of different systems, different departments. The problem with that is that it leads to duplicate effort, duplicate data, inconsistent data, and ultimately affects your decision making.
Mm-hmm.
In telecommunications, for example, the inventory information about things that are outside in the street and out in the world, that's often in a different system than the usage of that network information is. And so that ends up causing swivel chair data access, where to be able to understand even just part of the picture of the network, you have to look from one to the other. So it doesn't really matter whether you're managing fiber or electric distribution. Everyone's trying to create trusted, connected view of their operational environment
Yeah.
so that everybody's working from the same information.
Yeah, I mean, I think in some ways this kind of, my next question really kind of builds on that. I mean, obviously the trusted data has become kind of the major focus across the industry, right? How do we make this information trusted? And, tell me a little bit more about why is that accuracy, making sure that that data is connected, contextually correct, so important for these organizations, is especially the ones that are managing, massive infrastructure today.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So, it's an old saying that, infrastructure decisions are only as good as the data they're based on. So, data tells you what you have, but it's context and connectivity that tell you really what it means. It's not just simply good enough to know that the data exists, but it needs to not only be accurate, but be current and have context so that you can put it in the right operational context. It doesn't help me if I have data from last month because
Hmm.
today, the network doesn't change daily, it changes by the minute. So knowing that a cable exists is wonderful. Knowing that it's there right now is great. But I really need to know right now what services are on it, what
Yeah.
customers are affected. What if I have to take this cable down?
Yeah. And I mean, clearly, the GIS
Mhm.
is a huge area for folks to invest in. I mean, geographic information is critical for all of these organizations. But as always, I think it's probably in every industry, efficiency, cost effectiveness is always something we think about. How do these organizations, how can they maximize that investment? Beyond like the obvious stuff, like the, mapping and visualization,
Yeah.
rather than kind of like, I feel like a lot of times right now I'm seeing that people will roll out these new technologies, but it's like, oh, I have to start from ground zero. How do you avoid like replacing what they already have?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things that, I've learned from doing a lot of projects is getting your data into the GIS is not the finish line. It's really the starting line. Yeah, I've been on projects here. You get the data migrated. We have a party. We get T-shirts, and everybody celebrates because we're done. But honestly, that's really where the real opportunity begins. It's the biggest opportunity that you have, and for a lot of years, I've been calling that liberating your data. Right? You have to liberate your data and get it out of the GIS.
Yeah.
Being in the GIS is great and it's a great visualization platform, but actually sharing it outside of just your planners or your engineers, everybody benefits from that information, that operational knowledge. And when you integrate the GIS with, other systems, with other data sources, it can become not just a GIS, but a central operational system
Yeah.
far more than just being able to look at the map. It
Well, I mean,
helps you make those
yeah,
decisions.
I mean, I think you're alluding to something also, Robin, here, which is this thought that like, okay, well, maybe I get to that point where I know what assets I have. Like maybe I know that, which is good. Hopefully you know what you got, right? But then how do I think about how these things actually communicate with one another? How do I think about the connectivity, that kind of sits underneath all of this stuff or brings it all together? And, why is this understanding of that connectivity becoming, I mean, arguably just as important as understanding the location data itself?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different types of connectivity that you can think about. One of them is the connectivity of the data
Hmm.
itself between the different systems and linking those together. It's got to be at the foundation of how you keep your data up to date is through those integration points where you connect information. And then there's another level of connectivity also where you're talking about how do my assets connect to each other?
Right.
And that gets very interesting, especially in a fiber network where if you think about an electric network, you have a cable, and well, that's got power in it, and that power is going wherever that cable touches.
Hmm.
But when you get to a fiber cable or a copper cable, it has hundreds and thousands of individual things inside of it. So knowing exactly how a fiber is connected from one cable to another is very important, because I could have 1,000 pair copper cable coming into a splice closure. And just because there's another cable there doesn't mean that pair 372 is actually connected. So without having the connectivity of your network, knowing, and in electric and gas, it's about the valves and the switches that they turn on and turn off. And in fiber, it's about, are the strands or are the copper pairs connected? And having that connectivity combined with the physical information helps you do smarter things like spatial analysis based off of network data, right? And
Yeah.
then you add the connection of the usage on top of it, and now you're really cooking.
Well, from my point of view, Robin, maybe it's because I'm like the old guy in my company and I just want, I really need to have visibility of what's going on. And
Hmm.
I think that's probably a challenge that all businesses have. We all try to get, the data, try to see it, and we hear a lot about operational visibility. But what does that actually mean in practice for you guys?
Yeah, well, to me and at VertiGIS, we look at operational visibility, sorry, as
Yeah.
it's the ability to actually clearly and confidently understand your network infrastructure
Right.
real time. And that means that your data is connected to all of the other data sources and it's up to date. And you can see what work is in progress, what customers might be affected if there was an outage. And you've got a single trusted point of confidence, a single point of truth. So whether you're restoring power, isolating a water main, or in our case, fiber capacity, that operational visibility helps you understand all of that. Can I tell you a little story?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, there was a customer that I worked with several years ago, and they were using a good GIS based system. But here's where operational visibility starts falling apart, because they were only putting part of their network in that system. And
Mm.
large portions of their network were in other systems, and they were in spreadsheets, and they were in Visio and PowerPoint diagrams. So they had an outage, and it was a significant outage that affected everyone from the government to small shops. Because the data wasn't, they didn't have that operational visibility of a single source of truth. They had to look through lots of things, and it took them over a day to isolate the problem. And even
Mm.
worse than it took them over a day to isolate it, customers were having to call them to say they were out, rather than them being able to tell the customer that they were out.
Mm.
So, organizations become more resilient by understanding the impact of failures with that operational visibility of their network.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to change gears a little bit here, Robin, because we'd be remiss to not mention machine learning and AI, because I can't imagine you have a call where someone doesn't talk about a new AI system being implemented in some form or fashion. But certainly like the AI enabled workflows that you guys come across, they're becoming
Yeah.
more common. But it's funny, people like implement something like a workflow and then they expect instant results, and sometimes they're a little disappointed. What do organizations need to be thinking about as they're working through an AI implementation, I guess, to make sure that they can expect those results to be valuable?
Well, that's actually a great question, and it kind of ties in because we've been talking about data and
Yeah.
up-to-date data, connected data. Now, AI doesn't create trusted information. It depends on that trusted information. So, Bandit really comes down to data, and
Mm.
that's the foundation for your AI.
Yeah.
So the same thing that your engineers need, the AI needs. It's only able to reason over what it knows, and what it knows is what you know and what you provide to it.
Yeah.
It won't magically fill the gaps. So
Well, I
Before you
mean,
think about AI, think about building a better data foundation.
yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. I mean, that data foundation, and I mean, I can tell you, I come across the challenge of human error all the time
Yes.
with data. But I mean, certainly organizations want to improve the quality of that data because it is the building block for any meaningful AI-enabled workflow. But tell me a little bit, like if you were to sit with a company and you were trying to advise them on improving that data quality,
Mhm.
where should they start?
So I love that question because, it's another thing that I've been very passionate about in
Yeah.
my career, and that's about data stewardship. Data is only as good as the people that take care of the data. It starts with the engineer or the planner or whoever's responsible for putting the data in. And one of the problems that often comes up with data is organizations fall into a self-fulfilling cycle. People believe that the data isn't current,
Mm-hmm.
so they stop trusting it. Because they don't trust it, they don't update it. Before
Right.
long, the data really is outdated and it loses the value.
Mm.
So I really like to encourage companies to go from the other perspective of building a culture where it's pride of ownership, pride of ownership of the data, and focused on stewarding it, being a good data steward.
Yeah.
But the problem there is that people then turn around management, and I hate to point my finger at management, but they want to tell that they need to understand that it's not just the user's problem.
Right.
Everybody gets up in the morning and says, I'm going to do a good job today. But sometimes our tools get in our way. And
Mm-hmm.
so we need to give them tools that have things like automated workflows,
Right.
things that do automatic data validation, and AI tools that help
Right.
them make better decisions so that they can, they can be better stewards of the data and not let it get out of date.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I think about that a lot actually because the classic cycle is that management comes in, sets new parameters in place where implementing data, tracking data is part of your KPIs and it's very important, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I really struggle to find companies that implement this fully. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I come across businesses that I've been on, advisory positions with, and you look at their data and it's really it might be really perfect in one area and really primitive in another. It's a very hard thing for organizations to fully embrace the model.
And the funny thing, Bant, is that typically they want to engage in a data cleanup activity, right? How
Mm,
many data correction projects do we have going on in the world?
yeah,
And really, we're not focusing on the disease, we're focusing on the symptom. And if you run a cleanup project, you're going to run that same data cleanup project in a couple of years.
yeah.
So you're far better off focusing your investment on the problem and, create that foundation of stewardship and put the tools in place that help these guys keep the data accurate and to avoid having to clean it up to begin with.
Yeah, here, here. Well, I mean, everyone out there, that's great advice from Robyn. Keep your organization ready with some stewardship or data stewardship in this process. Robyn, if anyone out there had further questions for you, where's the best place to find you?
Well, I am located at VertiGIS, and my email is robyn.george@vertigis.com, and I would love to hear from anybody.
Excellent. Well, listen, I've really enjoyed chatting with you today. Certainly, there's a lot of moving pieces today, and I can't imagine the type of change that we're all going to see in the very near future with everything with machine learning. But it's been great learning the basics here today from you and seeing some of the challenges and hurdles that people are facing and seeing also how VertiGIS tackles some of those challenges. We've been speaking with Robyn George. She is a senior telecommunications consultant at VertiGIS, and VertiGIS unlocks the power of location to help organizations work smarter. Their innovative geospatial solutions connect complex location data with real-world operational workflows for utilities, government bodies, telecom providers, and commercial and industrial teams. And we've been talking to Robyn today, really, about all of the areas that need to be fundamentally in place, correct, and then how we can actually, once those things are done, how we can make it easier for folks as well in putting in workflows that are powerful so that we can get those synergies across the board. Robyn, thank you so much for being on the show today, and we look forward to having you back.
I do too. Thank you so much.
Cheers.